I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. On Thursday, FDA Commissioner Califf testified about the baby formula shortage during a Senate Health Committee hearing. Califf spoke about the shocking inspection results at an Abbott baby formula plant, which he claims had, quote, egregiously unsanitary conditions. Califf says a return to normal will only occur once Abbott can safely resume production. He estimates it will take around 2 months before shelves are once again filled with baby formula. Listen into the commissioner's entire testimony.
Chair Murray, Ranking Member Burr, and members of the committee, thanks for inviting us to testify on the safety and supply of infant formula in the United States. And I appreciate the 10-minute allocation. Ensuring that infant formula is safe and nutritious is a solemn responsibility of the Food and Drug Administration, and we're working with our government partners and the industry that produces infant formula to stabilize the supply. We're fully aware that many parents and caregivers have been unable to access the infant formula products that they need. Many of us are grandparents and grandparents too, and we want to express our deepest empathy for parents and caregivers who are experiencing difficulty and stress as they attempt to find formula. I personally have been driven by memories of the month my daughter spent in the intensive care unit as an infant, and the deep concern and anxiety of a parent driven to protect an innocent child. We provided you with an extensive written testimony that describes the recent history of this problem and gives a detailed timeline. During this hearing, I welcome reference to this document. On September 20th, 2021, FDA learned of a Coronabacter Sakazaki infection in an infant who consumed formula produced at Abbott Nutrition's facility at Sturgis, Michigan. Our detailed written testimony and timeline specify the chain of events that culminated in a for-cause on-site inspection of the Sturgis facility on January 31st, 2022. While there are many steps along the way where different actions could speed up the sequence of events, to this date I can find no evidence of intentional delay or malfeasance. I believe we have the facts delineated at this point, and we have initiated an internal after-action review so that we can make improvements to prevent delays like this in the future and improve our decision-making. I've asked Dr. Stephen Solomon, Director of our Center for Veterinary Medicine, to lead this review. Before leading the Center for Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Solomon served in the Office of Regulatory Affairs and has deep organizational knowledge of the processes in the food program as well as compliance and enforcement. The FDA and CDC's investigation could not conclude, as you've stated, that the egregiously unsanitary conditions in the Abbott facility caused the illnesses reported in our timeline. We cannot rule it out either, as the confluence of events is highly unusual. There is no dispute that the facility was unacceptably insanitary, as evidenced by the consent decree. Frankly, the inspection results were shocking. Standing water, cracks in key equipment that present the potential for bacterial contamination to persist, particularly in the presence of moisture, leaks in the roof, a previous citation of inadequate hand washing, and current poor foot sanitation, bacteria growing from multiple sites, and many signs of a disappointing lack of attention to the culture of safety in this product that is so essential to the lives of our most precious people. As a clinician, I've used life-saving clot-busting drugs, diagnostic tests, and cardiovascular devices made by Abbott. This is so far removed from my previous experience with the company that I remain very concerned. As soon as we received positive Coronabacter results from environmental samples at the facility that we collected during the inspection, we contacted Abbott to ask the company to issue a voluntary recall. The need to take urgent action to protect the most vulnerable of all of our people, infants, presented a dilemma. This was the largest plant of the dominant manufacturer, and it was the sole source of a number of metabolic formulas essential for viability of infants with no substitution possible because Abbott had no backup plan. We knew that ceasing plant operations would create supply problems, but we had no choice given the unsanitary conditions. We took several critical steps within hours, including meeting with those who have been dealing with our supply chain throughout the pandemic, and a memo was sent to relevant agencies signaling the supply chain risk. We acted early to ensure the specialty metabolic and amino acid products, for which Abbott was the sole producer, were made available on a case-by-case basis, consulting with nutritionists, pediatricians, and safety experts. We contacted companies in the industry to encourage increasing their production to supply the market. We asked retailers to place temporary limits on how much any one person could buy to minimize excess buying. We remain in frequent communications with our government and industry partners about the status and risks. Because of the lack of diversification of this market and the absence of a central hub for integrating supply chains, we concluded early on that getting the Sturgis facility up and running safely was a top priority, but we had no confidence in the integrity of the Abbott quality program at this facility. Accordingly, we initiated proceedings toward a consent decree which requires Abbott to undertake steps to assure safe production of formula, including hiring outside expertise with reporting to FDA. Our oversight is critical, but make no mistake about it, the return to normal will only occur when Abbott takes the steps to resume production in a safe manner. As detailed in the charts included in your written testimony, we and our federal partners have been monitoring the in-shelf stocking of formula and the rates of infant formula consumption all along. Due to the efforts of other companies to step up their production, sales of infant formula have remained steady, and in fact, volume and quantity of formula purchased are 5 to 15% higher now than in the month before the recall, as demonstrated in charts included in the written testimony. Despite the overall numbers showing diminished but steady supply, we knew that distribution was an issue. Some areas were experiencing significant shortages, but overall there was enough formula to go around. About a month ago, the reports of shortages on the shelf proliferated, although there was not a drop in production. This increase in consumption most likely represents heightened concern of parents and caregivers about shortages, leading to understandable effort to purchase ahead to ensure adequate supply at home. I want to emphasize again, this is not blaming the parents and caregivers. This is rational behavior based on the concerns that they had. This type of cycle has happened with other products throughout the pandemic, and we realize that the only solution is to have adequate supply to make sure the shelves are stocked. To that end, we've employed a host of measures to increase supply. A consent decree was signed with Abbott Nutrition last Monday that will allow the Sturgis plant to get back in production mode. I met with the Abbott CEO day before yesterday, and he assured me they'll be ready to go in early June. They've now given a date of June 4th as when they'll be back in production. We continue to work with current U.S.-based manufacturers to increase the production and distribution from FDA-inspected facilities, both domestically and abroad. I commend them for their efforts in this regard, as we've seen substantial increases. We're helping with the all-of-government response, including Operation Fly Formula, encouragement and support of importation of product not currently in the U.S. market, by using careful case-by-case easing of regulatory requirements to safely increase the number of manufacturers allowed to import formula, working with state health commissioners to increase flexibility with WIC contracts to enable additional infant formula suppliers to enter the market and to catch price gougers. Throughout the time since the recall, a highly dedicated group of experts within and outside the FDA have worked to manage the complex issues encountered for those caring for infants with complex metabolic issues requiring very special formula. I'll leave you with several thoughts. First, FDA's timeliness of interviewing the whistleblower and getting into the facility for a for-cause inspection were too slow, and some decisions in retrospect could have been more optimal. I did not return to FDA to preside over business as usual. After years of working in multiple private and public parts of the industry, I believe that success follows proper attention to structure, function, leadership, and resources to support the work of employees. All of these issues need attention in the chronically underfunded food side of the FDA, and you'll see changes in the near future. Our requests for funding and authority are essential in concert with improved operations and leadership. Second, the return of the Sturgis plant to safe production of formula is critical. Abbott's enormous market share left it with a responsibility for producing safe infant formula that was not met. We'll do everything in our power to work with Abbott to make this happen as quickly as safely possible, but this timing is in Abbott's control. Third, the all-government effort and the enormous goodwill of government partners and companies within and outside the U.S. has been heartening. And while we're waiting for Abbott to fulfill its responsibility, we'll meet the essential needs of American families with supplies from a variety of sources. Fourth, the supply of inadequacy did not happen overnight. Across the industries we regulate, we're seeing evidence that the just-in-time distribution system, market concentration, and sole source contracting are leading to shortages. Multiple reports to Congress call for improved supply chain management. Until regulatory agencies have digital access to critical supply chain information and personnel to do the work, we'll continue to react to supply chain disruptions rather than intervening to prevent them. I want to conclude by reiterating that we'll not rest until our shelves are replete with safe and nutritious infant formula, and I'm committed to improve the ability of the FDA to meet its mission to protect and promote the health of American people, particularly infants, our most vulnerable people. Thank you.